Women's Voices Chorus is an amazing group of women.
It's women from anywhere from high school to retirement.
All ages, different professions.
Homemakers, doctors, lawyers,
computer programmers,
nurses and teachers.
Professional musicians, folks who are amateur musicians.
And this has been a really great experience to be around people that are not necessarily musicians first, but their love of it puts it right up there with the musicians that I've worked with in my life.
I think what brings these women all together is the love of fun and having a great time. For many of them, they've worked all day and they come sometimes a little bit tired, but after those 2 hours, we've all had such a great time that we leave feeling really energized.
So I think that's what unites this choir, is just a deep, deep love of music from every single person here.
One of the most important things to me is that it's a chorus for women, which means that most of the things we sing are written for sort of the full range of what women's voices can do.
So last year we took a trip to Venice in Slovenia and Austria. I really wanted to continue that trend by picking a piece, the Vivaldi Gloria, that had been written for Venice and for this particular time period.
He's terrific at giving a really good background for the pieces that we do.
This piece was written, like most of Vivaldi's sacred music, for the girls at an orphanage, the ospedali, and these girls were raised to be basically servants of rich people. They're almost all bastard girls who were left at the doorstep of the orphanage.
And so you know what you're singing about, you know a little bit about the person that wrote it.
And the women in the orchestra were the players, the women, the orphans were the singers.
You know about what it was like when it was originally performed.
It was an all-female gig, except for Vivaldi, who would sit outside of a grate, and you can see this in Venice. He sat outside of a grate while all the women sat inside the grate.
You know how to be authentic in the music, and I think that's something a lot of choirs maybe don't put enough emphasis on, how to be authentic to the music, and Alan is really good about that.
We had an amazing tour of Venice, and one of the things we got to do is tour one of these orphanages. There were 4 in the cities in the Baroque era, in the 1500s and 1600s, where these girls would work and live. And we got to see one of them, the original dorms, the staircase, and even the Sala della Musica, the place where the music was made.
He composed for something called the Ospedale della Pieta, which is an orphanage, one of several in Venice. And I think most of them were known for their music, but this particular one was, I think, one of the best.
We got to see a room where, you know, these girls would have sung this. And so you go in this room, there's all these really cool paintings everywhere, and then you go and you look up and there's this little, it's sort of like a choir loft, and there's like this metal grate, so you can't really see who's behind it, but it lets the sound out. So we all crammed up into the little loft, and like half the choir would go up and get to look down on the other half of the choir and sing for them, and then we'd switch.
And so to be able to sing this music that had been written for this time, and to have had the chorus experience a place like that, get the feel of Venice, which is a very unusual city, the canals aside, but the aura of an old-time city really helped them to sing that music, I think, with a little bit more understanding and more connection to the past. This piece ties into the mission of Women's Voices Chorus because we want to perform music that was written for women. We have a deep respect for history. We also want to show how music was performed originally, and unfortunately throughout history women have been pushed aside in music, and one of the ways of righting that wrong is by performing this music in its original guise with an all-women's chorus.
I think it's probably most often performed by mixed choruses, men and women.
And we kind of brought it back by having an all-girls, all-women, I should say, choir, as well as mostly women in the orchestra, too. So in that way, we're sort of connecting to Vivaldi.
You know, I had sung the piece before and I had no idea, and I think a lot of people don't know that the piece was originally written for women. How cool is that?
There's no one part that's the most important.
We have some women who can sing very low pitches, and I wanted to take advantage of that fact to do this particular piece.
For me, it was just an incredibly wonderful piece of music to sing.
One of the reasons that this music is so accessible is that the music is full of joy and energy It's very tonal, which means it's not hard to listen to. We expect the sounds to come. It's also very melodic, and Vivaldi was a master at making melodies that people wanted to hear, almost as though you know what's going to come next. You can anticipate the melodies. It's like you remember how it goes somehow, even though you've never heard it before. It's one of the traits that makes Vivaldi's music so popular, even to this day.
I think my favorite movement is the last one. And I was listening to it again, and just the way that the different voices will come in and then recede, and then another voice will come in and they'll sort of weave in and out, and then every now and then the orchestra will be out front. And so just singing that felt like just kind of riding a wave of glorious music and just sort of getting carried away.